Ladies and gentlemen, this is game number 1 of a best of 3. It's the Go4SC2 monthly finals, and Polar Knight is gonna host this first match. Spawning in the north, the green ZerG player. He represents Team Dignitas. It's Tefel. And his opponent to the south, the red Protoss player, representing my insanity, none other than Stardust. Stardust, of course, just coming off the back of WCSEU Season 1. Did fairly well there. Probably not as good as he was hoping, but still, a live final finish is always going to be something that you're very happy about. Tefel, again, someone who has had multiple plays in WCSEU, a spectacularly talented ZerG player as well. This best of 3 should be amazing. To say I'm excited about it would be a bit of an understatement. I'm borderline hyper. Actually, that's a lie. I'm not even borderline hyper, because Stardust has gone for a Forge first, and that means one thing and one thing only: the potential for a cannon rush. Damn, I hope you're ready for this, because my oh my, some sneaky stuff is going to be happening. Tefel, he's open spawning pool first though, so he's a bit safer. He hasn't done something super bold and super crazy like a hatch first, so he's not incredibly exposed. So it's what he does next, and what Stardust is going to do. Stardust spots that, okay, there's no hatch there. The drone though comes over, the drone sees the pylon. This is a massive giveaway. He's just like, you're building a pylon. Oh well, I know it's there now, so I might as well get that hatch on the way. Pull a couple of drones, because this cannon rush is not going to be working. Stardust though, going to wall himself in here very nicely. And now it's actually impossible to stop this before the cannon comes down. Great utilization of the map layout and everything that's there. And Tefel now being forced to put a lot more drones. Currently though, Stardust has invested significantly more resources into making this work. He's releasing the probe, starting a second cannon up. With these 2 pylons nearly down, that cannon is only going to have a little bit of time to start shooting away, so may not be as effective as Stardust was hoping. He has got another pylon nearly finished though. Great control at the moment out of Tefel, stopping this very effectively. The cannon is now active, but it's racking up only a handful of kills. Really not worthwhile as of yet, so a lot comes down to this second cannon. It's got to do a staggeringly large amount of damage. It's got to make sure that it justifies the expense, and I'm just not sure if that's been done. Stardust has lost 575 resources with this cannon rush. He's delayed his natural base massively. And all he did was pick off 2 drones, a couple of lings, and didn't even delay the hatch. Not the best opening for Stardust right now. Tefel, without a doubt, sitting in quite a comfortable position at the moment. His supply block isn't ideal, probably not what he would have been hoping for, but in the grand scheme of things, that supply block is not going to compensate for how many resources were tied up in that cannon rush attempt. Tefel just showing us how he's so effective and so well drilled at defending these early aggressive plays, and it's something that Tefel really does excel at. He has quite an unusual build order, generally up against Protoss, where he'll get out a couple more lings slightly earlier than you see most ZerG players. Obviously against the cannon rush it's not exactly the same, but Tefel does opt to get more lings out earlier than a lot of ZerG players do. And that makes him very resilient to early pressure. And then he drones up heavily later. Generally he gets out more of the lings at around the kind of 40, 50-ish supply mark. So we'll see if he does that again, or if now he's defended that cannon rush, he feels a bit safer. But I think the one thing that we can assume from Stardust is that just because he went for this cannon rush opening, it doesn't mean he isn't going to follow this up with some kind of 2-base play. Stardust is very well known as being a player who isn't afraid to throw out some massive all-ins and some very aggressive playstyle. And if he does that, it's all cool, if it works. But if it doesn't go the way that he wants, unfortunately problems can quickly occur then. We've got the Stargate coming down now from Stardust. This could be for Phoenix, it could be for an Oracle, could even be for Void Rays. All viable options for a Protoss player. From this positioning, I wouldn't be surprised to see Phoenix. An Oracle could be quite good, but it's going to be hitting a lot later because of that cannon rush delaying everything. And as a result, there's a fair number of Queens out, and I think it would be a bit harder to try and make that work. And so Phoenix are going to be on the cards. This gives Stardust a couple of really useful things. Firstly, map control. He can force back any of Tefel's overlords that are stray out on the map, potentially supply blocking the Zerg player, but also stopping him getting vision of the map. Secondly, he can harass. If any of these bases are sitting in a bit of a vulnerable spot doing anything they shouldn't be, if Queens aren't in the right position, if Spore Crawlers aren't placed down, 4-5 Phoenix can very quickly dismantle a drone line or pick off the odd Queen. And that can be a huge problem. So it's something that really Tefel has to be very cautious about, is where he positions his Queens, where the Spore Crawlers are placed, just to guarantee that he's not going to take too much damage and too much harassment from these Phoenix. Already Stardust getting a couple of little wins, taking down these overlords. Tefel though has produced a good number. He's also constantly producing more just to make sure that he isn't getting supply blocked. Spore Crawlers have been begun. Behind this, Stardust adding in his robotics facility. He's also adding in more Phoenix still, going to be going up to 4 and a 5th one on its way. Probably will stop at 5. Generally, that's where most Protoss players will stop. It allows you to easily pick up Queens. More Overlords getting taken down, and the Phoenix are definitely paying for themselves. The concern though is the Hydra Den. With that on its way, these Phoenix have got a limited lifespan where they're actually going to be particularly threatening. Once the Hydras get out, they shut them down hard. We've got the Robotics Bay now from Stardust coming down behind this, so he's transitioning to a Colossus play. And as I mentioned earlier, moving these Queens out a bit far away from other Queens or from Spores leaves them vulnerable, and Stardust able to pick up a kill there on one of them. We've got some Zealots coming through as well, but Roaches are going to easily take them down. A couple of Overlords getting a little low, but nothing too terrifying as of yet. But the Phoenix of Stardust really have paid for themselves exceptionally well and done a lot of damage. It's going to be frustrating for Tefel now, knowing that he's lost those, he's had to spend more lava and more minerals replacing Overlords than he maybe would have wanted to. Transfuse is even being used on an Overlord there, doesn't want to lose any more unnecessarily. But with the Hydras now coming through, these Phoenix have to be exceptionally cautious with how and where they harass. If they move in too aggressively, where there are a group of Hydralisks, they will just melt. But if they harass nicely, while the number of Hydras isn't too high, they can get some really good damage down still. And also, should any of these Hydras move out on their own, they can get picked off quickly as well. Push coming through now though from Tefel. He's got a decent army supply, up at 64, adding in a few more Hydralisks and making progress across the map. As of yet, doesn't know about the third base, but does have some Roaches heading straight to it. This third now in a considerable amount of problems, but unfortunately for Tefel, a bit of a misrally on a lot of these Hydras mean they get boxed up and don't even fight for the majority of that engagement. This is giving Stardust an opportunity to defend his third, thwarting this attack, preventing the damage coming down, and completely taking all of the power out of this push in one very clean and effective movement by boxing in those Hydras that went a bit out of position outside the natural. Big win there for Stardust, who is now starting up his Colossus production. Gonna get the second one out shortly. He's got decent upgrades, getting ahead of Tefel at the moment. But Tefel, he's got a decent drone count at 60, fully saturated, or nearly fully saturated at all bases. Needs to get a couple more at his natural, but not by much, just up to 63 would be ideal. Phoenix now, trying to find any more harassment they can try and get. Nope, Stardust has killed 12 workers so far this game. Another interesting rally from Tefel coming through here, with 2 Queens making progress across the map. With 3 hatches and only 4 Queens, this means that one of the bases, unfortunately, isn't getting injects. But with these 2 Queens coming over, there is the availability for a few transfuses to come through, potentially making this army a little bit stronger. ZerGling's getting a good bit of damage down onto the probe line, but Stardust forcing the engagement. Force fields coming through. The two Colossi at the back getting some damage. A third one about to finish up in production. Those Hydralisks getting a fair bit of damage down, but they don't have the range upgrade yet. It's not yet kicked in, and as a result, they're unable to hit this back line. The Zealots doing an amazing job of zoning out a lot of this army. And Stardust, with some Phoenix harassment behind this, coming off considerably better in this engagement than his opponent. Phoenix coming through as well now, picking up the few Hydralisks that remain. And because Hydras are light units, so much damage is taken. GG comes down from Tefel, and Stardust gets the 1-0 lead in a very nicely played Game 1.